I caught my girlfriend cheating with my sister's fiancé, and they were best friends. What happened next was a complete disaster. Look, I'm 32 years old, and I'm about to tell you the story of how I lost my girlfriend, my trust in my sister, and damn near my entire family in the span of about 2 weeks. This isn't one of those the kind that makes you question everything you thought you knew about the people closest to you. So let me set this up for you, because the context matters here. I'd been with my girlfriend, Emma, for about 3 years. 3 solid years, brother. We lived together in my apartment downtown. We talked about marriage. We had the whole future mapped out, you know? She was beautiful, smart, funny. I thought I hit the jackpot. My family loved her. My friends loved her. Hell, my sister Sarah and Emma were best friends. Like, they hung out without me sometimes. Girls' nights, shopping trips, the whole deal. I actually thought it was awesome that my girlfriend and my sister got along so well. Man, was I a fool. And then there's Jake. Jake was my sister's fiancé. They've been together for 4 years, engaged for 1. The wedding was supposed to happen in like 6 months. Nice guy, or so I thought. Worked in finance, made good money, treated my sister well. Or at least that's what it looked like from the outside. We weren't super close, but we got along fine. Family dinners, holiday stuff, you know how it is. He was about to be my brother-in-law. The thing is, and this is what kills me, Emma and Jake were always around each other because of me and Sarah. The 4 of us would do double dates, weekend trips, game nights at my place. I literally watched them interact hundreds of times and never saw a single red flag. Not one. They were normal, friendly, but not too friendly. You know what I mean? There was nothing that made me go, hold up, something's off here. So here's how it all started to unravel. It was a Thursday morning, middle of March. I remember because it was right after Emma's birthday, and I just bought her this expensive necklace she'd been wanting. Spent like $1,500 on it. She was so happy, wore it every day, posted it all over Instagram with these captions about how lucky she was to have me. Yeah, lucky. That Thursday, I had to head into the office early for a meeting. I'm talking like 6:30 a.m. early. Emma was still asleep when I left. I kissed her forehead. She mumbled something, and I headed out. The meeting ended up being a complete waste of time. Got canceled after I'd already driven all the way downtown. So I turned around and came back home around 8 a.m. I figured Emma would still be there getting ready for her work-from-home day. Maybe we could grab breakfast together. When I walked into the apartment, something felt off. Nothing obvious. Just this weird vibe, you know? The air felt different. I called out for Emma, but she didn't answer. I heard the shower running, so I figured, okay, she's in the bathroom. I went to the bedroom to change out of my work clothes into something more comfortable. And that's when I saw it. Her phone. Just sitting there on the nightstand, screen facing up. Now, listen. I'm not normally the type of guy who goes through his girlfriend's phone. I trusted her completely. We had each other's passcodes, but it was one of those things where we never actually USED'd him because there was no reason to. But the phone was just right there. And it buzzed. A text message notification lit up the screen. I glanced at it without thinking, the way you do when a phone lights up near you. And brother, I wish I hadn't. The message preview made my blood run cold. It was from Jake, asking if I'd left early again and saying he couldn't wait for this morning. Why the hell would my sister's fiancé be texting my girlfriend about my work schedule? And what was happening this morning that he couldn't wait for? I could hear the shower still running. Emma was humming some song, completely oblivious. My hands were shaking when I picked up her phone and unlocked it with her passcode. The messages with Jake loaded up, and man, I wasn't prepared for what I saw. The first thing that hit me was a message from Jake talking about last Tuesday morning, saying something explicit about how damn good she was. I scrolled up, hands trembling, and the messages just kept going. Months and months of them. Over a year of secret conversations. They were talking about things they'd done together, places they'd met up, times they'd hooked up. And then I saw the one that made me physically sick. Something about my bed being more comfortable than hotel rooms, about the risk making it more exciting. My bed. They were sleeping together in my bed, in my apartment, while I was at work, thinking everything was normal. I sat down on the edge of that bed and kept scrolling, even though every message was like a knife in my chest. The picture they painted was devastating. They'd been meeting up 2 or 3 times a week for months. Anna would lie and say she was going to the gym or yoga or meeting a friend. Jake would tell Sarah he had early client meetings or had to work late, and they'd come here to my place and do God knows what. What really messed me up was how they talked about us in those messages. About me and Sarah. There was one where Jake mentioned leaving a family dinner at my place, talking about how Sarah wanted him to help pick wedding venues, but all he could think about was ripping Emma's dress off. Another one where Emma admitted she felt like a liar when I asked if she thought Jake and Sarah made a good couple, but then she said they couldn't keep doing this because someone would find out. And Jake's response was that he knew, but he couldn't stop because she was addictive. They'd switch between dirty talk and making plans, then jump right back into our group chat like nothing was happening. I pulled up our 4-person chat. We called ourselves the Fab Four, and saw messages from just 2 days ago where Emma was helping Sarah plan her bachelorette party, and Jake was joking with me about a basketball game. All while they were secretly planning their next hookup. The shower turned off. I had maybe 2 minutes before Emma came out. My mind was racing with what to do. Part of me wanted to confront her right then and there, scream at her, throw her out. But something stopped me. If I confronted her now, she'd just lie. She'd manipulate the situation, cry, make excuses, try to minimize everything. And Jake would get a heads up and come up with his own story. They'd coordinate their lies, and I'd never get the full truth. I heard the bathroom door open. I quickly locked her phone and set it back exactly where it was, screen down this time. Emma walked out in a towel, hair wet, and jumped a little when she saw me. She smiled. That same beautiful smile I'd fallen in love with. And asked what I was doing home, thought I had an early meeting. I told her it got canceled. She said, "Oh, that's nice." Asked if I wanted her to make breakfast. I sat there looking at her. This woman I thought I knew inside and out, and I felt nothing. That's the weird part. I thought I'd be furious, shaking with rage. But in that moment, I just felt empty. Like I was looking at a complete stranger wearing my girlfriend's face. I told her I wasn't hungry, had some work emails to catch up on. She kissed the top of my head, the same mouth that had been on Jake, and went to get dressed. I went to my home office and closed the door. I needed to think. I needed a plan. Because if I was going to blow this up, and trust me, I was going to blow it all up, I wanted to do it right. I wanted undeniable proof. I wanted to catch them in a way they couldn't lie their way out of. I spent the next hour installing one of those phone monitoring apps on my laptop. The kind that mirrors all incoming and outgoing messages in real time. I felt dirty doing it, but I needed to know everything. How long this had really been going on. How often they were meeting. Where. All of it. The messages started coming in throughout the day. Around 10 a.m., Emma texted Jake saying it was a close call that morning, that I'd come home early and they needed to be more careful. Jake replied that he knew, but he couldn't wait until next week when I'd be on that work trip. 3 whole days, just them. Wait, what work trip? I didn't have any work trip scheduled. I checked my calendar. Nothing. Then I remembered. About 2 weeks ago, Emma had suggested I take a guy's weekend to visit my buddy Marcus in Austin. Said I seemed stressed and could use the break. She was so supportive about it. even helped me look at flights. I told her I was thinking about going next weekend. Oh my God, she was planning it. She was actively creating opportunities for them to be together in my apartment for an entire weekend. That's when I decided exactly what I was going to do. I tell Emma I was definitely taking that Austin trip. I'd book the flights and hotel, make it all look real. I'd leave Friday morning, send her updates from Austin using photos Marcus could send me, but I wouldn't actually go anywhere. I'd stay local in a hotel, and on Saturday, I'd come back unannounced and catch them together. Undeniable proof. But first, I needed to know if Sarah had any clue, if my sister was in on this somehow, or if she was as clueless as I'd been. That evening, I texted her, just casual, asking how wedding planning was going. She sent back this long, excited voice note going on about flower arrangements and seating charts and how lucky she was to marry Jake. Her voice was so genuinely happy. She had no idea. My sister had absolutely no clue that her fiancé was sleeping with her best friend. Over the next few days, I played my part perfectly. I was the loving boyfriend. I laughed at Emma's jokes. I made dinner. We watched our shows together. The whole time, I was watching the messages between her and Jake pile up on my monitoring app. They were getting bolder, more detailed about their plans for my supposed trip to Austin. I saw Jake tell her he was going to lie to Sarah about having a work conference that weekend, that she believed anything he said at this point. Emma replied saying it was the same with me, that she almost felt bad sometimes, that then she'd think about them together and couldn't stop. Then they started talking about something deeper, whether they ever thought about leaving us and being together for real. Emma said she thought about it all the time, but the timing wasn't right. His wedding was in 6 months. That I was his girlfriend's brother. It was complicated. Jake agreed, but said they should talk about it face to face that weekend. And then I saw the message that changed everything. Emma told him there was something important she needed to tell him this weekend, something she was scared about. Jake asked what it was, said she was freaking him out, but she wouldn't say over text. Said she'd tell him everything on Saturday. What the hell did that mean? My mind went to the darkest places. Was she pregnant? Did she have some kind of disease? Was she planning to leave me and run away with him? I couldn't figure it out, but it was eating me alive. Still, I had to stick to the plan. I had to catch them together. Friday morning came. I packed the bag, kissed Emma goodbye, told her I loved her. She said she loved me too with those big, beautiful eyes that have been lying to me for over a year. I drove to the airport, checked in online, even posted an Instagram story at the gate with a caption about Austin. But I didn't get on the plane. I went to a hotel 20 minutes from my apartment, checked in, set up my laptop, and watched the messages roll in real time. Emma told Jake I was at the airport, and they were clear. Jake said he'd be there in an hour, that Sarah thought he was at his conference, and this was really happening. Emma said she was nervous about telling him her secret. Jake promised he wouldn't freak out, that whatever it was, they'd figure it out together. I sat in that hotel room, hands shaking, reading these messages as they came in. They thought they were so smart, so careful. They had no idea I was watching every single word. Around 2 p.m., Jake sent a message saying he was outside my building and heading up. I waited 30 minutes. Let them get comfortable. Let them think they were safe. Then I got in my car and drove to my apartment. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought I might pass out. This was it. I was about to walk in on my girlfriend and my sister's fiancé. I was about to destroy multiple lives, including my own. But I had to know the truth. I had to see it with my own eyes. And I had to find out what her secret was. I parked a block away and walked slowly to my building, trying to calm my breathing. In the lobby, I ran into Mrs. Chun from 4B getting her mail. She smiled and made a comment that stopped me cold. Said she'd seen my brother upstairs, that he and my girlfriend were such a lovely couple. My brother. She thought Jake was my brother. How many times had they been here together for her to think that? How many people in my building had been watching my girlfriend parade around with another man and just assumed it was family? I felt sick. I got in the elevator, pressed 7, watched the numbers climb. When the doors opened on my floor, I could hear music coming from my apartment. Something slow and romantic. I walked down the hall, every step feeling impossible. Put my key in the lock. Turned it slowly, quietly. The door opened. The living room was empty, but I could hear voices from the bedroom. I walked through the apartment, and when I got to the half-open bedroom door, I saw them. They were on my bed. Emma was sitting on Jake's lap, both still clothed but straddling him, and they were kissing. Deep, passionate kissing. His hands in her hair. Her hands on his chest. Completely lost in each other, completely oblivious to anything else. But here's what I did. I didn't kick the door open. Didn't start yelling. I just stood there for maybe 10 seconds that felt like 10 hours. And in those 10 seconds, something inside me died. The part that loved Emma, that trusted Jake, that believed in my family, it just switched off. Right there in that hallway, I pulled out my phone, took 3 clear photos. Then I backed away slowly, walked out of the apartment quietly, closed the door without a sound, and went back to the elevator. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I felt ice cold, calm, because I'd realized something important. If I confronted them right then, they'd scramble. Emma would cry. Jake would apologize. They'd minimize it and beg for forgiveness. And maybe some small part of me would want to believe them. But I didn't want that. I wanted the truth. The whole truth. And I wanted everyone to know. My sister, my parents, everyone. I wanted the consequences to be so massive they couldn't squirm their way out. So I went back to my hotel room, forwarded those photos to my email, deleted them from my phone and the recently deleted folder. Then I sat down and read through every single message they'd ever sent each other, all the way back to the beginning. The first one was from last April, right after Easter dinner at my parents' house. Jake had texted Emma saying it was probably weird, but he got her number from the group chat. Just wanted to say she looked really pretty that day. Emma's response was basically that, yeah, it was weird since he was marrying Sarah. Jake said to forget he said anything. Just a moment of stupidity. Emma agreed they should pretend it never happened. And I thought, okay, so that's where it started. One dumb, inappropriate text. But then I kept reading. A week later, Jake texted again saying he couldn't stop thinking about her, that it was wrong but he needed to be honest. Emma told him they couldn't do this, that she loved his fiancé, who was her best friend, and she was with someone she cared about. Jake apologized and said she was right. But 3 days after that, they were still texting. Casual stuff at first. How was your day? Did you see this video? That kind of thing. Then it escalated. Compliments. Flirting. Jake telling her how lucky I was to have her. Emma saying Sarah was lucky too. The first time they met up alone was in June, about 8 months ago. Emma told me she was meeting a college friend for lunch. Jake told Sarah he had a client lunch. They met at some restaurant across town. According to their messages afterward, they just talked that first time. But Jake sent her something about how amazing it was, how alive he felt, how they should do it again. The second meet was 2 weeks later. Then a week after that. Then it became regular. And somewhere around late July, about 7 months ago, they crossed the line physically. Emma sent Jake a message late at night saying she couldn't believe what they'd just done. Felt terrible, but also didn't regret it. Jake said neither did he, that it was incredible, but she was incredible. That was it. That was when the affair really started. From that point on, the messages got more explicit, more frequent, more careless. They were meeting 2 or 3 times a week. Hotels sometimes. My apartment when I was at work. Even Sarah's place when she was out. I found one from September, where Emma talked about almost getting caught when Sarah came home early, how she had to hide in the bathroom and pretend she was just returning a book. Said her heart was pounding so hard she thought she'd pass out. Jake replied that it was too close. They needed to be smarter, but man, the risk made it even hotter. They were getting off on it, on almost getting caught, on lying to us, on fooling everyone. There was a conversation from November about Thanksgiving. The four of us had spent it at my parents' house. That night, Jake messaged Emma about how torture it was sitting across from her at dinner and not being able to touch her, how all he could think about was that morning. Emma replied saying that morning was perfect, that his fiancé had been out shopping for wedding dresses while he was with her. Said they were awful people. Jake agreed, but said he wouldn't change a thing. Hundreds of messages like this. Literally hundreds. They talked about us, about me and Sarah. Like we were obstacles. Inconveniences standing in the way of what they really wanted. But what really destroyed me was realizing this wasn't just physical. Mixed in with all the explicit stuff, they had real emotional conversations. Deep talks about their dreams, their fears, their childhoods. Emma was telling Jake things she'd never told me. Jake was opening up to Emma about stuff he'd never shared with my sister. In one message, Emma wrote about thinking she was falling in love with him for real, not just the physical stuff. Said when she was with me, she thought about Jake. When she laughed at my jokes, she wished they were his, that she felt like she was living a lie. Jake responded saying he knew exactly what she meant, that he proposed to Sarah because it was the next logical step after 4 years together, because their families expected it. But he didn't feel for her what he felt for Emma. Said with Emma, everything was more brighter, more alive. I had to stop reading after that one. Got up, went to the bathroom, stared at myself in the mirror. This wasn't just cheating. This wasn't just sex. They were in love with each other, or thought they were. And they'd been living this double life for over a year, while the rest of us planned weddings and talked about futures built on complete lies. I forced myself to go back to the laptop. Kept reading. And that's when I found the recent messages from this week and finally understood what Emma's secret was. 3 days ago, she texted Jake saying she was late, really late, and had taken a test that morning. Jake asked if she was serious. Emma said she was pregnant. The test was positive. There was a gap of about 2 hours before Jake responded, asking whose it could be. Emma said she didn't know. They'd been careful most of the time, but not always, and she was still intimate with me sometimes too. Could be either of us. Jake freaked out, said this changed everything. Emma agreed, said that's why she needed to tell him in person this weekend. They needed to figure out what to do. Whether the baby was his or mine, either way, it was going to blow everything up. Jake asked if I suspected anything. Emma said no. I was clueless, just excited about my Austin trip. Then she said something that killed me. That if the baby was Jake's, maybe it was a sign. Maybe they should just come clean, leave us, be together for real. Jake's response was that they'd talk Saturday face to face and figure it out. Told her he loved her. She said she loved him too, that she was scared. I sat back in that hotel chair and just laughed. Not a happy laugh. A broken, disbelieving laugh. My girlfriend was pregnant and didn't know if the baby was mine or my future brother-in-law's. And they were planning to discuss their future together while I was supposedly in Austin, completely oblivious. Man, listen, I've been through rough stuff in my life. Lost my grandpa young. Got laid off once. Had my heart broken in college. But nothing compared to this. To realizing the woman I'd planned a future with had been living a secret life with someone about to marry into my family. And the pregnancy. Brother, I can't even describe what that did to me. The thought that I might have a kid with a woman who'd been cheating on me for over a year. Or worse, that the baby might be Jake's. and I'd been planning a future that included raising another man's child without knowing it. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat in that hotel room staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out my next move. I had the evidence. The photos. Screenshots of messages. I could blow this up right now. Send everything to Sarah, to my parents, post it online for everyone to see. But something stopped me. I wanted to hear them say it out loud. I wanted to catch them so completely that there was no way to deny it, no way to spin it. And I wanted to see their faces when they realized I knew everything. So here's what I decided. Saturday morning, I'd come back to the apartment. Not quietly this time. I'd walk in, confront them both, make them admit everything. Then I'd tell Sarah. Tell my parents. Make sure everyone knew the truth. Saturday came. I woke up at 6 a.m. and checked the messages. Jake had texted Emma at 5:30 saying he was leaving. Sarah was still asleep. He told her the conference started early and he'd be there in 20 minutes. Emma replied that she was ready to talk about everything, that she was nervous. Jake told her not to be, that whatever happened they were in this together, he'd take care of her. I wanted to throw up. This man engaged to my sister, planning a wedding in 6 months, was promising to take care of my pregnant girlfriend. I got dressed, drove to my apartment building. But I didn't go up right away. I sat in my car for about an hour, watching the entrance. Sure enough, at 6:45 a.m., I saw Jake walk in through the lobby. He was carrying coffee and a bag from that expensive bakery Emma loves. Bring her breakfast. Playing the perfect secret boyfriend while his real fiancé was at home planning their wedding. I waited another 30 minutes. Let them get settled. Let them feel safe. Then I got out and walked into the building. In the elevator, the doors were about to close when Mrs. Chun called out to hold it. She got in, smiled, said, "Good morning, dear." Mentioned she'd seen my brother earlier and how he and my girlfriend make such a lovely couple, always so happy together. I asked her what she meant about seeing them together. She looked confused and explained they were here all the time, usually weekday mornings, always seeming so in love, holding hands in the lobby and laughing. Said she just assumed I was living with my girlfriend and my brother visited regularly, that we must all be very close. I thanked her and got off at her floor. Said I forgot something. I couldn't go up yet. I needed a minute. I stood in the stairwell trying to process what she'd just said. All the time. Weekday mornings. Holding hands in the lobby. My neighbors. People I said hello to every day. I'd been watching my girlfriend with another man and thought it was normal because they assumed he was my brother. How many people had seen them? How many knew there was another man regularly in my apartment? And nobody mentioned it because they thought it was innocent? I felt humiliated. Betrayed doesn't even cover it. Like the whole building had been watching this affair happen, and I was the only one stupid enough not to notice. I pulled out my phone, checked the monitoring app. New messages were coming in. Emma had taken another test that morning. Still positive. It was real. She was really pregnant. They were discussing DNA tests, whether they could find out whose baby it was before birth. The conversation showed they were both panicking. Emma was saying it was expensive and risky. Jake was insisting they needed to know, that if it was his, they'd figure it out. He'd leave Sarah and they'd be together. But if it was mine, Emma would need to decide what she wanted to do. Emma got upset at that, said it was a human being they were talking about. She couldn't just decide like it was nothing. Jake backed off, apologized, said he was freaking out. Emma said she was freaking out too. She was the one who was pregnant and would have to deal with all of this. They were fighting. The stress was getting to them. Good. I wanted them stressed, wanted them panicking, because in a few minutes, their stress was about to get so much worse. I took the stairs up to 7, walked down the hallway to my apartment. I could hear voices inside, in the living room now, not the bedroom. I put my ear to the door and listened. I could hear Emma's voice asking what if they just told us, both of us, today, ripped the Band-Aid off, and dealt with whatever happened. Jake's voice responding, asking if she was insane, that I was going to lose my mind and Sarah would be devastated. The wedding was in 6 months and her parents had already paid for half of it. Emma's voice getting emotional, asking if they were just going to keep lying and sneaking around. What happened when she started showing and people noticed? Jake saying he didn't know. He didn't have all the answers. He just needed time to think. Emma crying now, saying they didn't have time. She was pregnant. They had to make a decision. That's when I unlocked the door and walked in. The looks on their faces, brother, I'll remember those for the rest of my life. Pure terror. Emma literally jumped off the couch. Jake stood up so fast he knocked over the coffee table. The bakery bag spilled everywhere, croissants rolling across my floor. For a solid 5 seconds, nobody said anything. We just stood there, 3 people frozen in this horrible moment. Then Emma started crying. Not pretty crying. Ugly, desperate, panicked crying. Telling me, oh my God, she could explain. It wasn't what it looked like. I just stared at her. Then looked at Jake. He was pale, shaking, his mouth opening and closing but no words coming out. I finally spoke. My voice was completely calm. Too calm. Told her it was exactly what it looked like. She didn't need to explain. I knew everything. Jake found his voice, stammered that we needed to talk about this. They didn't mean for it to happen. And I laughed. Actually laughed. Asked which part didn't they mean to happen? The first text? The first meet? The first time they slept together? Or the hundreds of times after that? Emma's eyes went wide, asking how I knew. I pulled out my phone, opened the monitoring app, and read out loud one of their messages from November about Thanksgiving. The one where Emma talked about his fiancé shopping for wedding dresses while he was with her. Looked up at both of them and said that was from November. Asked if they wanted me to read more. Jake sat back down hard, put his head in his hands. Emma kept crying, kept saying she was sorry over and over. I told her to save it. Said I knew about everything. The messages, the meetings, the hotels, my bed, my apartment. Told Jake that Mrs. Chun in 4B thought he was my brother. Thought he and Emma were a cute couple. That's how often they'd been here. Then I looked at Emma and said I knew she was pregnant, and I knew she didn't know if it was mine or his. The room went dead silent. Jake's head snapped up. He stared at Emma, then at me, then back at Emma. Asked if she'd told me about the baby. I said no. She hadn't told me anything. I'd been reading their messages for a week. I knew everything. Every detail. Every lie. Emma collapsed on the couch. Jake looked like he might pass out. And I just stood there watching them both fall apart, feeling absolutely nothing. That's when Emma said something that made everything even worse. Looked up at me, mascara everywhere, and said she was going to tell me today. I had to believe her. They were going to come clean about everything. Tell me and Sarah. Figure out what to do about the baby. I said, oh, how generous. Asked what the plan was. Were they going to ride off into the sunset together while me and Sarah picked up the pieces? Jake stood up, said it wasn't like that. They cared about us both. This just happened. They fell in love. Didn't plan it. And that's when I lost the calm facade. Not violently. I didn't hit him. Didn't throw anything. But the ice cracked. I said they fell in love? Told Jake he'd destroyed 4 years of my life. Destroyed my sister's entire future. Was about to destroy my parents who thought he was family. And he wanted me to sympathize because he fell in love? I stepped closer to Jake. Told him my sister was at home right now planning their wedding. Picking out flowers and seating charts and dreaming about spending her life with him. And he'd been sleeping with her best friend for over a year. Been in her house, eaten dinner she cooked, slept in her bed, all while planning his next meet with Emma. Said they were both disgusting. Emma tried to speak. I told her, don't even try to justify it. I'd read the messages. I knew they thought they were in love. I knew they'd been talking about leaving us. But here's what was going to happen. They were both getting out of my apartment right now. And then I was telling Sarah everything. My parents. Anyone else who needed to know what kind of people they really were. Jake's face went from pale to panicked. Started begging me not to tell Sarah like this, to let him talk to her first. Let him explain. I said, explain what? How he'd been lying for over a year. How he proposed while sleeping with her best friend. Told him no. He didn't get to control the narrative anymore. Didn't get to spin this. Emma stood up, grabbed my arm, asked what about the baby. If it was mine, was I just going to walk away? I pulled my arm free, told her if it was mine, and that was a big if. We'd deal with it through lawyers, but her and me, we were done. Completely done. Then I looked at Jake and told him to get out. Now, he grabbed his jacket, started for the door, then turned back and said he was sorry. Really was. For what it's worth, he never wanted to hurt me or Sarah. I told him to get the hell out before I did something I'd regret. He left. Emma tried one more time, asked if we could just talk, figure out what to do. I said there was nothing to figure out. She'd made her choices. Now she got to live with them. Told her to get out. She grabbed her purse, still crying, headed for the door. Right before she left, she turned and said something that sealed it for me. Sighed I wasn't perfect either. I was never really there for her, always working late and distracted. Maybe if I'd paid more attention, this wouldn't have happened. And that right there, that's when I knew for sure I'd made the right choice. She was trying to blame me for her affair, for her betrayal, for over a year of lies. I told her to get out and never contact me again, unless it was through a lawyer about the baby. She left. The door closed. I was alone in my apartment. The same apartment where they'd been meeting up for months, and I finally let myself feel it. The anger, the pain, the humiliation, the grief. I sat on the floor and cried. Really cried, for the first time since this started. Because it was real now, not just messages on a screen, not just suspicions. It was real. It was over, and my entire life as I knew it had just imploded. But I didn't have time to fall apart, because the hard part was still ahead. I had to tell Sarah, had to tell my parents, had to blow up what was left of my family, because keeping this secret was impossible and wrong. I stood up, wiped my face, called my sister. She answered on the second ring, happy and bright, asking what was up. I told her I needed her to come to my place right now. It was important. She could hear something in my voice. Asked if everything was okay, if I was all right. I said just come over. Alone. Don't bring Jake. This was between us. She said okay, she'd be there in 20 minutes. Said I was scaring her a little. I said good. She should be scared. Because what I was about to tell her was going to change everything. 20 minutes felt like 20 seconds. I spent that time cleaning up the apartment, putting the coffee table back, throwing away the croissants, trying to make the place look normal even though nothing about this situation was normal. My hands were shaking the whole time. Not from anger anymore, from what I was about to do. I was about to destroy my sister's entire world. When I heard the knock on the door, my stomach dropped. I opened it and there she was, Sarah, my little sister. She looked worried, concerned about me, had no idea she was walking into a nightmare. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, hair in a ponytail, no makeup. She looked so young, so innocent. And I was about to shatter her. She came in, immediately asked what was wrong, if I was okay. Said I sounded weird on the phone. I told her to sit down. She did on the couch. The same couch where I'd found Emma and Jake earlier. She was looking at me with these big eyes, waiting, getting more nervous by the second. I didn't know how to start. How do you tell someone the two people they trust most in the world have been betraying them? I sat down across from her, took a deep breath, and just said it. Told her I needed to tell her something about Jake and Emma. That it was going to be really hard to hear, but she needed to know. She immediately got defensive. Asked what I meant. What about them? I could see her brain already trying to protect itself, trying to reject what was coming. I pulled out my phone, opened the screenshots I'd saved, and handed it to her. She took the phone, started reading. I watched her face change. Confusion at first, like she couldn't understand what she was looking at. Then recognition. Then disbelief. Then horror. She scrolled and scrolled, her hands starting to shake, her breathing getting faster. She looked up at me, eyes already filling with tears, and asked if this was real, if this was some kind of sick joke. I told her it was real. All of it. Over a year of them meeting up behind our backs, in my apartment, in her house, hotels, everywhere. While we were at work, while we were planning her wedding, while we were living our lives thinking everything was fine. She put the phone down like it was burning her. Started shaking her head, saying no, no over and over. Told me there had to be some explanation. Maybe I was misunderstanding. Maybe it was... And she just stopped. Because even she couldn't come up with an excuse for what she'd just read. Those messages were crystal clear. Then she asked the question I'd been dreading. Asked when I found out. I told her the truth. Thursday morning. That I'd been watching and planning and gathering evidence since then. That I'd caught them here this morning. That I'd confronted them and kicked them out less than an hour ago. And brother, the look she gave me, it was like I'd slapped her. She asked why I didn't tell her immediately. Why I waited. Why I let her spend almost a week still thinking she was getting married to someone who loved her when I knew the truth. I tried to explain. Told her I needed to be sure, needed proof, needed to catch them together so they couldn't lie their way out of it. But even as I said it, I could hear how weak it sounded. The truth was, I'd been so focused on catching them, on building my case, that I hadn't thought enough about what it would do to Sarah to know I'd kept this from her even for a few days. She stood up, started pacing, asking me questions rapid fire. How long? Where? How many times? Who else knew? Did our parents know? I answered everything. Told her 13 months. Multiple times a week. My apartment mostly. Nobody else knew. Not our parents, not her friends, nobody. Just me now. And them. Then she stopped pacing and asked something that made my blood run cold. Asked if I had any proof besides the messages. Because she said, and I'll never forget this, she said Jake would deny it. He'd say I faked the screenshots somehow. That I was jealous of their relationship. That I was trying to break them up. I stared at her. Couldn't believe what I was hearing. Part of me understood. She was in shock, grasping at anything that would make this not real. But another part of me was angry that even now, even with everything I'd shown her, she was worried about protecting him. I told her I had photos from this morning of them together in my bedroom. She asked to see them. I hesitated, told her she really didn't want to see them. She insisted, said she needed to see it with her own eyes or she'd never believe it. So I showed her, pulled up the photos on my phone. Emma on Jake's lap, kissing, on my bed. Sarah looked at them for maybe 3 seconds before she turned away and threw up. Right there on my living room floor. Just lost it. I grabbed a trash can, but it was too late. After she was done, she just sat there on the floor, crying. Not loud crying. Quiet, broken crying. The kind that's somehow worse because you can hear the person's heart breaking in real time. I got her water, helped her to the bathroom to clean up. She was shaking so badly she could barely stand. When she came back out, she was different. The shock had worn off and something else had taken its place. Rage. Pure. Burning rage. She asked where Jake was. I told her I didn't know. Probably went home. Probably at their place right now trying to figure out damage control. She grabbed her phone, started calling him. It went to voicemail. She called again. Voicemail. Third time, he answered. I could only hear her side of the conversation, but I could tell he was trying to talk, trying to explain. She cut him off. Told him she knew everything. Her brother had shown her proof. She'd seen the messages and the photos. Then she said something that gave me chills. Said if he wasn't at her apartment in 30 minutes, she was coming to find him and it wouldn't be pretty. She hung up, looked at me, asked if I'd come with her to her place for when he got there. Said she needed backup, needed someone on her side because she didn't trust herself not to do something crazy. I agreed. Of course I agreed. We grabbed our stuff and headed to her apartment across town. The drive was silent. Sarah just stared out the window. At one point she asked, so quietly I almost didn't hear, if Emma had said anything about her. If she talked about Sarah in those messages. I didn't want to answer, but she deserved the truth. Told her, yeah, they'd mentioned her. Talked about lying to her. About sneaking around while she was wedding dress shopping. Sarah started crying again. Said her best friend. Her best friend. They'd known each other since college. Been through everything together. And the whole time Emma had been sleeping with her fiancé. She asked what she'd done wrong, why they'd do this to her. I told her she hadn't done anything wrong. This wasn't about her. It was about them being selfish and horrible people. But I could tell she didn't believe me. She was already blaming herself, already wondering what she could have done differently. We got to her apartment. She lived in a nice place in a good neighborhood. 2 bedrooms she and Jake had been renting together for the past 2 years. She unlocked the door and we went in. The place was neat, clean, decorated with photos of them together. Their engagement photo was on the wall. Sarah looked at it, and I watched something break in her all over again. We didn't have to wait long. Maybe 15 minutes before there was a knock. Sarah opened the door, and there was Jake. He looked terrible. Red eyes, hadn't shaved, still wearing the same clothes from this morning. He tried to come in, but Sarah blocked him. Told him to stay right there in the hallway. He started talking immediately, trying to explain, trying to say he was sorry, that he never meant for it to happen, that he loved her. The words just kept coming, this desperate stream of excuses and apologies and promises. But Sarah just stood there listening with this cold, dead expression. When he finally stopped to breathe, she spoke. Her voice was completely flat, emotionless. She asked him one question. Just one. Was he in love with Emma? The silence that followed was deafening. Jake opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. And that hesitation told us everything. He couldn't even give her a clean no. He tried to say it was complicated, that he cared about both of them, but he was confused. Sarah laughed. Not a happy laugh. A broken, bitter laugh. She told him to get out. Out of the apartment, out of her life. The wedding was off. They were done. She'd get her stuff out this week, and he could keep the apartment. She never wanted to see him again. Jake started panicking then, saying no, wait, they could work through this. They could go to counseling. He'd do anything. He tried to reach for her, and I stepped forward. Told him to back off. Told him he'd done enough damage. He looked at me with so much hate in his eyes, like this was somehow my fault. Then Sarah said something that changed everything. She put her hand on her stomach and looked at Jake with tears streaming down her face. Told him he should know something before he left. Said she was pregnant. About 8 weeks. She'd found out 2 days ago and was planning to surprise him this weekend. The hallway went completely silent. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Sarah was pregnant with Jake's baby after everything he'd done? And then the full weight of it hit me. Emma was pregnant too. Both of them. Both potentially with Jake's kid. Jake's face went white as a sheet. He asked if she was serious. She nodded, pulled out a photo from her purse. An ultrasound picture. 8 weeks along. Said she'd been so excited, so happy, couldn't wait to tell him. Had this whole thing planned for the weekend. And now she was standing here telling the father of her baby that their relationship was over because he'd been cheating on her for over a year. Jake actually stumbled backward, had to catch himself on the hallway wall. He tried to say something, but nothing came out. Sarah just looked at him with disgust and said she didn't know what she was going to do about the baby yet, but whatever she decided, it would be her choice, not his. He'd lost the right to have a say when he started sleeping with her best friend. Then she looked at me. Her eyes were different now, harder. She asked if there was anything else she should know. Anything else I'd found in those messages. And brother, this was the moment. I could tell her about Emma's pregnancy, about the fact that there were now 2 women pregnant, and both babies might be Jake's. Or I could keep that information to myself, at least for now. Let Sarah process this first level of devastation before adding another layer. I looked at Jake. He was staring at me with pure terror in his eyes. He knew what I knew. He knew I could blow up his world even more than it already was. And I saw him actually shake his head slightly, this tiny pleading gesture. But Sarah deserved the truth. All of it. So I told her that Emma was pregnant too. That she'd found out a few days ago. That she didn't know if the baby was mine or Jake's because she'd been sleeping with both of us. That the secret she'd been planning to tell Jake this morning was about the pregnancy. Sarah's knees gave out. She actually collapsed right there in the doorway. I caught her before she hit the ground. Jake tried to help, but I pushed him away. Told him he'd done enough. Sarah was just sobbing now. These gut-wrenching sobs that sounded like they were being torn from somewhere deep inside her. I helped her inside, got her to the couch. She was hyperventilating, couldn't catch her breath. I made her breathe into a paper bag, tried to calm her down. Jake was still standing in the doorway, frozen, looking like he'd seen a ghost. When Sarah could finally breathe again, she looked up at Jake with so much pain in her eyes. Asked him how he could do this. How he could destroy not just her life, but potentially the life of an innocent baby, or 2 innocent babies. Asked him what kind of person does that. Jake tried to say he didn't know Emma was pregnant, that she hadn't told him until this morning. As if that made it better. As if the pregnancy was the problem, and not the over a year of systematic lying and cheating and betrayal. Sarah told him to leave. Just leave. She couldn't look at him anymore. Jake tried one more time to say something, but she screamed at him to get out. Screamed it so loud I'm sure the neighbors heard. He finally left, just turned and walked down the hallway without looking back. After he was gone, Sarah just sat there staring at nothing. I sat with her, didn't say anything, just let her process. After maybe 20 minutes, she spoke. Asked what she was supposed to do now. Her fiancé was gone. Her best friend had betrayed her. She was pregnant with a baby whose father had been cheating on her for over a year. The wedding was in 6 months. Well, was supposed to be in 6 months. She'd have to tell everyone it was canceled. Have to explain why. Have to deal with everyone's questions and pity and judgment. I told her she didn't have to do anything right now. She could take her time, figure things out one step at a time. But she shook her head. Said no, people needed to know. Our parents needed to know. They loved Jake like a son. They were helping pay for the wedding. They deserved to know what kind of person he really was. Then she asked about Emma. Asked if I was going to try to work things out, especially if the baby was mine. And I told her the truth. Said no. There was no working anything out. Emma and I were done. If the baby was mine, we'd figure out co-parenting through lawyers. But her and me as a couple, that was dead. Sarah nodded. Said she understood. Then she said something that surprised me. Said we should tell our parents together. Tonight. Get it over with. Rip the Band-Aid off. Because she couldn't carry this secret around even one more day. Couldn't pretend everything was fine. Needed everyone to know the truth so she could start trying to heal. I agreed. Called my mom, asked if her and Dad were home. She said yes. Why? Was something wrong? I told her Sarah and I needed to come by, needed to talk to them about something important. She got worried, asking if everyone was okay. I said we'd explain when we got there. We'd be there in an hour. So that's what we did. Sarah cleaned herself up, changed clothes, tried to make herself look presentable. I helped her pack a bag of essentials because there was no way she was staying in that apartment tonight. We got in my car and started driving to our parents' house. On the way there, Sarah asked me something I wasn't expecting. Asked if I thought she should keep the baby. Said she didn't know if she could raise a child that would always remind her of Jake's betrayal, but also didn't know if she could live with herself if she didn't keep it. The baby was innocent in all this. Didn't ask to be created in the middle of this mess. I told her I couldn't answer that for her. It was her body, her choice, her life. Whatever she decided, I'd support her. Our parents would support her. She wasn't alone in this. She nodded, wiped her eyes, and said okay. Then she said something that gave me chills. Said she hoped the baby was Jake's and not mine, because at least then she wouldn't have to share custody with Emma. Wouldn't have to see her former best friend for the rest of her life at kid birthday parties and school events. And I realized the full scope of this disaster. If Emma's baby was mine and Sarah's baby was Jake's, our kids would be first cousins. But raised in this mess, the family tree was about to get so twisted and messed up. And if Emma's baby was Jake's and Sarah's baby was also Jake's, they'd be half-siblings. Half-siblings whose mothers were former best friends who now hated each other. This wasn't just a betrayal. This was a generational catastrophe. We pulled up to our parents' house. It was evening now, the sun setting, lights on inside. I could see my dad through the window, probably watching TV. My mom was probably in the kitchen. They had no idea their world was about to explode. No idea that by the end of this conversation, nothing would ever be the same. Sarah looked at the house and started crying again. Sad she couldn't do this. Couldn't walk in there and destroy our parents' happiness. They loved Jake, loved Emma. Thought we were all going to be one big happy family. I told her they loved us more, loved her more, and they deserved to know the truth. She took a deep breath, nodded, and we got out of the car. My mom opened the door before we even knocked. She took one look at Sarah's face and knew something was terribly wrong. Started asking what happened, if someone was hurt, pulling us inside. My dad came out from the living room, saw us both, his face going serious. We all sat down in the living room. Mom on one side, Dad on the other, me and Sarah on the couch between them. And then Sarah started talking, told them everything. About Jake and Emma, about the affair, about the messages, about me catching them, about the pregnancies, plural. The silence that followed was crushing. My mom's face went through about 10 different emotions. Shock, disbelief, horror, sadness, anger. My dad just sat there, jaw clenched, hands in fists. He didn't say a word, but I could see the rage building. Finally, my mom spoke, asked if we were sure, if there was any possibility we were wrong. Sarah pulled out her phone, showed her some of the messages I'd sent her. Mom read them, and her hand went to her mouth. She started crying. My dad stood up, walked to the window, stood there with his back to us for a long time. When he turned around, his face was hard. He looked at me and asked where Jake was now. I said probably at his place. Dad said good, because if Jake was here right now, he didn't know what he'd do. Said he trusted that man, welcomed him into our family, helped him plan the wedding, and he'd been betraying his daughter the entire time. Then Mom asked the question I'd been dreading. Asked about the babies. What were we going to do about the babies? Sarah said she didn't know. She was still figuring it out. I said if Emma's baby was mine, we'd work something out legally, but Emma and I were done. Mom looked heartbroken. Said she'd been so excited about becoming a grandmother. Had been hoping Sarah and Jake would start a family soon after the wedding. Now she might be becoming a grandmother under the worst possible circumstances. To a grandchild whose father had destroyed her daughter's life. And possibly another grandchild whose mother had betrayed her son. Dad asked what we needed, what he could do. Sarah said she needed to move back home for a while. Couldn't stay in that apartment with Jake. Needed time and space to figure out what came next. Dad said, of course, her room was still there. She could stay as long as she needed. Then he said something that surprised me. He looked at Mom and said they needed to talk to Emma's parents. Needed to let them know what their daughter had done. Mom agreed. Said Emma's parents deserved to know. They'd always been close with our family. This was going to devastate them too. The rest of the night was a blur. Phone calls. Planning. My dad calling his lawyer friend for advice on the wedding cancellations, deposits, contracts. My mom calling Emma's mom, that conversation ending in tears on both sides. Sarah breaking down multiple times, needing to be comforted, needing to talk, needing to be held. And through it all, I just kept thinking, this is only the beginning. The DNA tests haven't happened yet. We don't know whose baby is whose. Emma and Jake are still out there, probably trying to figure out their own next moves. The extended family doesn't know yet. Friends don't know yet. This is going to get so much worse before it gets better. Around midnight, I finally left. Sarah was in her old room at my parents' house, Mom sitting with her. Dad walked me to my car, put his hand on my shoulder and told me I did the right thing telling Sarah. Told me he was sorry I was going through this. That no one deserved what had happened to me and Sarah. I drove home to my empty apartment. The apartment where this whole nightmare had started just a few days ago. Where I discovered the first message. Where I'd caught them together. Where my life had completely fallen apart. I walked in and it felt different, contaminated. Like I could never live there again. Without thinking about what they'd done. I sat on the couch and I just existed. Too numb to cry. Too exhausted to be angry. Just empty. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Just 3 words. I'm keeping it. The baby. She was keeping the baby. Despite everything, despite how it was conceived, despite who the father was, she was going to be a mother. I texted back that I supported her. That I was proud of her. That she was going to be an amazing mom. Then another text came in. From an unknown number. I opened it and my blood ran cold. It was Emma. She must have gotten a new number or was using someone else's phone. The message said we needed to talk. About the baby. About the future. About figuring out what came next. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I blocked the number. But look, blocking a number doesn't make a baby disappear. Dealing with the fallout? That was a whole different beast. A few days later, the lawyers got involved. Emma wanted a prenatal DNA test. A non-invasive one. And man, agreeing to that test? It was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Because I had to be honest with myself in those quiet moments at night. Part of me, a dark, selfish part of me, I was praying that kid wasn't mine. I know how that sounds. It sounds horrible. But I just wanted a clean break. I wanted to burn the bridge, walk away, and never look back. If that baby was Jake's, I was free. I could disappear and leave their mess to them. If the baby was mine, I was tied to the woman who destroyed me for the rest of my life. The waiting was torture. Brother, it was 2 weeks of pure hell. 2 weeks of staring at the ceiling, barely sleeping, jumping every time my phone buzzed. Thinking about every possible outcome. Then the call came, my lawyer. Voice flat, professional. No preamble. It's a match. You're the father. I didn't cheer. I didn't smile. I just sat there in my car, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, and I felt the weight of the entire world drop on my shoulders. It was terrifying. The reality of it hit me like a freight train. But then, underneath the panic, underneath the anger, something else kicked in. Something primal. This wasn't just a baby anymore. This wasn't Emma's mistake. This was my daughter. An innocent kid who didn't ask for any of this garbage. I sat there for an hour just processing it. And I made a choice right then and there. I told myself, you hate her mother, and that's valid. But you are going to be the best damn father this little girl has ever seen. You are going to show up. That was the turning point. I told my lawyer to lock it down. Strict boundaries. We use a court-ordered co-parenting app now. No texts. No calls unless someone is dying. Everything documented. I was going to be a dad, 100%. But I wasn't going to be Emma's partner ever again. And let me tell you, even with that resolve, the first year after my daughter was born was brutal. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I was a mess. Going through the motions of being a dad, doing the pickups and drop-offs, feeding and changing diapers and reading bedtime stories. But inside, I was dying. Every time I saw Emma, every time I had to hand over my daughter and watch her walk away with the woman who destroyed me, it felt like reopening the wound. 6 months after my daughter was born, my sister wouldn't stop bugging me about seeing a therapist. I kept saying no, that I didn't need to pay some stranger to listen to my problems. But then my lawyer got involved too. Said it would look good for the custody case if I could show I was working on my mental health or whatever. So I went. A few times. The guy was fine, older dude, seemed like he knew his stuff. But honestly, I'd sit there not knowing what to say. How do you explain to a stranger that you feel like an idiot? That you got played for over a year and didn't see a single sign? He tried to get me to talk about my feelings, about processing the betrayal. I mostly just sat there. He'd say things like how betrayal rewrites your memories, makes you question your whole reality. And yeah, he was right about that. Every memory with Emma was contaminated now. That time she came home late from the gym? Probably wasn't at the gym. That weekend visiting her college friend? Maybe, maybe not. I couldn't trust my own past. After about 6 sessions, I stopped going. Told my lawyer I'd done enough for the court records. The therapy wasn't really helping anyway. What actually helped was the gym. Heavy weights, every single day. Some days I'd go twice. Morning and night. It was the only time my brain shut off, you know? You can't think about anything when you're trying not to die under a barbell. And work. I threw myself into it. Took every extra project that came my way. Stayed late at the office. Weekends I didn't have my daughter. I worked. Kept myself busy. Because stopping to think was dangerous. There were some rough weeks where I drank more than I should have. Nothing crazy, just a few too many beers to help me sleep. My dad noticed, had a talk with me, said I couldn't fall apart. I had a daughter depending on me. He was right. I pulled it back. My buddies tried to help too. Invited me out, tried to get me to talk about it. I'd go to the bar with them, but I didn't want to talk. Just wanted to drink, watch the game, pretend everything was normal. They got the message eventually. Stopped asking questions. That's how I dealt with it. Not therapy sessions and processing feelings. Just pushing through. Staying busy. Staying numb. Surviving one day at a time. It wasn't healthy, probably. But it's what I knew how to do. And it got me through those first brutal months. The hardest moments were the ones I didn't expect. Like my daughter's first birthday. Emma wanted to do a party. Invited both families. I showed up because it was my daughter's day and she deserved to have her dad there. But walking into that room, seeing Emma playing hostess, seeing Jake there with Sarah's son, seeing our parents trying to pretend everything was normal, it was surreal. We were all playing this game, pretending we were a functional family when we were anything but. My daughter had no idea. She was just a happy 1-year-old, excited about cake and presents. And that's what killed me. She was growing up thinking this was normal. That families just existed this way. Separate, fractured, polite but cold. There was this moment at that party that really got to me. Emma tried to get a photo of the three of us together. Her, me, and our daughter. She asked my mom to take it. Said it would be nice for our daughter to have a picture of her parents together. My first instinct was to say no. But then I looked at my little girl, not even understanding what was happening, and I said okay. We took the photo. Emma was smiling. I wasn't. You can see it in the picture. Her trying to lean in close, me maintaining distance. Our daughter between us just being a kid. It's the saddest photo I own. After that party, Emma pulled me aside, asked if we could talk privately. I said no. Whatever she needed to say, she could say it through the co-parenting app. She said please, just 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We went to the kitchen while my parents watched my daughter. Emma started crying immediately. Told me she knew I hated her, that she deserved it, but she missed me. Missed us. Said seeing me at pickups and drop-offs was torture because I looked at her like she was nothing. Like she meant nothing. I told her that's because she was nothing to me now. Nothing except the mother of my child. She'd killed whatever else she was. That person was dead. She asked if there was any chance, any possibility at all, that someday I could forgive her, that we could try again. For our daughter's sake. Give her a real family. And I looked at her, really looked at her, and said no. Told her our daughter would have a family. She'd have me, she'd have my parents, she'd have Sarah and her son. She'd have love and stability and people who showed up for her. What she wouldn't have is parents together. Because I could never be with someone who'd proven so completely that they couldn't be trusted. Emma said people change. That she'd changed. That the affair with Jake was over, had been over since everything came out. That she'd been in therapy too. That she was different now. I asked her if Jake had reached out to her since then. She hesitated, just for a second, but I saw it. I asked her again. Had Jake contacted her? She admitted he had. A few times, just to check on her, see how she was doing. They'd grabbed coffee once, and there it was. The proof I needed that nothing had changed. She destroyed our relationship, destroyed my sister's relationship, created this massive, catastrophic mess. And she was still talking to him, still getting coffee with him, still unable to fully cut ties with the person she betrayed me with. I told her we were done with this conversation. Walked back to the party, left an hour later. Didn't speak to her beyond logistics for 3 months after that. Sarah had her own version of this. Jake tried multiple times to get back together with her. Even after his failed attempt with Emma, even after realizing they didn't work as a real couple, he wanted Sarah back. Saw he'd made a terrible mistake. Said he'd spend the rest of his life making it up to her if she'd give him another chance. Sarah told me about it one night when we were both at our parents' house for dinner. The kids were playing together in the living room. We were out on the back porch. She said Jake had shown up at her apartment a few weeks earlier, brought flowers, got down on his knees, begged her to consider counseling, to try to work through this for their son's sake. She told him to leave, said their son would be fine. Plenty of kids have separated parents. What kids don't need is parents who fundamentally can't trust each other, who look at each other and see nothing but lies. Jake had cried, actually cried on her doorstep. Told her he loved her, always had. The thing with Emma was just, he didn't know what it was. Confusion, weakness, selfishness, but it wasn't love. Sarah was the one he loved. She'd asked him one question, just one. If Emma called him right now and said she wanted to try again, would he go? He'd hesitated, just like Emma had hesitated with me. And in that hesitation, Sarah had her answer. She told him to never come to her apartment again. Exchanges would happen at neutral locations only. Communication through the app only. And if he violated that boundary, she'd go back to court and push for supervised visitation. He'd left. Hadn't tried again since. Both of us had drawn our lines, made our boundaries clear, and both of us were learning to live with the consequences. The thing that nobody tells you about this kind of situation is how isolating it is. My friends didn't know how to talk to me about it. Some of them took my side, stopped talking to Emma entirely. Some of them tried to stay neutral, which honestly felt like betrayal all over again. How do you stay neutral when someone systematically lies to and cheats on your friend for over a year? Dating was complicated too. I tried, starting about a year and a half after everything imploded. Went on some dates. Met some nice women. But every single time it started getting serious, I'd sabotage it. I'd find reasons to pull back, to not trust, to assume they were lying even when they weren't. There was this one woman, Jessica, who I really liked. We dated for about 4 months. She was kind, funny, loved that I was a dad. She met my daughter once, just briefly at a park. And my daughter liked her. That should have been great, right? But it terrified me, because I started thinking, what if I let Jessica in? What if I introduce her to my daughter more seriously? What if my daughter gets attached? And then what if Jessica turns out to be like Emma? What if she's lying too? What if everyone lies? I ended it with Jessica. She deserved better than someone who couldn't fully trust her through no fault of her own. She cried, said she understood, but it still hurt. I felt terrible, but I couldn't do it. Couldn't take that risk again. Dr. Richardson said I was protecting myself, that it was normal after what I'd been through. But he also said at some point I'd have to decide. Was I going to let Emma's betrayal control the rest of my life? Was I going to let her take away not just our relationship, but every future relationship I might have? I didn't have an answer to that. Still don't, honestly. There were a couple of moments over these 3 years where I almost softened, almost considered forgiving. Not forgetting. I could never forget. But maybe letting go of some of the anger. One was when my daughter got really sick. She was about 2.5, came down with a high fever that wouldn't break. Emma called me panicking. We met at the emergency room. Spent 6 hours there together while they ran tests and brought her temperature down. Turned out to be just a bad virus, but in those 6 hours, waiting and worrying together, I saw a glimpse of what we could have been. Co-parents who could at least be friendly, who could support each other during the hard parts. But then we left the hospital and went back to our separate lives, and the walls went back up. Because that moment of unity was about our daughter, not about us. And when it was over, we were still just 2 people who couldn't stand each other. The other moment was my daughter's 3rd birthday. A few months ago, Emma did another party. Smaller this time, just immediate family. And I watched Emma with our daughter, really watched her. Saw how much she loved that little girl. How hard she was trying to be a good mom. How she'd changed diapers and dealt with tantrums and sang silly songs just like I did. I thought, maybe she had changed. Maybe she was a different person now than she was 3 years ago. Maybe. But then I remembered. Remembered reading those messages. Remembered catching them together. Remembered the year of lies. And I realized it doesn't matter if she's changed. What she did can't be undone. The trust she destroyed can't be rebuilt. Some things are just broken forever. Sarah told me something wise last month. We were talking about Jake, about how he'd requested to take their son on a vacation. She'd approved it through the lawyers, but she was anxious about it. And I asked her if she ever thought about forgiving him. Not getting back together, just forgiving. Letting go of the anger. She said something I've been thinking about ever since. She said, forgiveness isn't about the person who hurt you. It's about you. It's about releasing the hold the person has on your heart and your mind. But forgiveness also doesn't mean reconciliation. Doesn't mean letting them back in. doesn't mean trusting them again. She said she's working on forgiving Jake, not for him, for herself, because carrying this anger around is exhausting. But forgiving him doesn't mean she ever trust him. Doesn't mean she ever want him in her life beyond co-parenting. Doesn't mean what he did was okay. It just means she's trying to free herself from the prison of hate. I don't know if I'm there yet. Don't know if I'll ever be there. The anger is comfortable in a weird way. It's familiar. It gives me a reason to keep the walls up, to stay protected, but I'm trying. Going to therapy, working on myself, being the best dad I can be, building a life that's mine, that Emma doesn't get to be part of, that exists separate from the wreckage of what we were. Last week, at pickup, Emma asked me how I was doing. Not just the usual, how was your week, small talk, but really asking. How was I? Was I okay? Was I healing? I told her the truth. Said I was surviving, taking it one day at a time, learning to be okay with the fact that I'll never fully be okay with what happened. She said she was sorry. Again, for the 100th time. And I finally responded to one of her apologies. Told her I believed she was sorry. I believed she regretted what she'd done. But being sorry doesn't erase it, doesn't fix it, doesn't make us anything other than two people who share a daughter. She nodded, said she understood. And we went back to our scheduled programming. The polite distance, the cordial co-parenting, the careful boundaries. And that's where we are. That's where I am. 3 years out from the worst betrayal of my life. 3 years into being a single dad. 3 years of therapy and healing and trying to rebuild. Some days are good. I laugh with my daughter. I have dinner with my parents and Sarah and our kids. I go on dates. I feel almost normal. Other days are hard. I see a couple holding hands and feel jealous. I watch my daughter ask why mommy and daddy don't live together and have to explain in age-appropriate terms. I lie awake at night wondering if I'll ever fully trust anyone again. But I'm here, still standing, still fighting, still loving my daughter with everything I have. And I've learned some things. Hard lessons that I wouldn't wish on anyone, but that I can't unlearn now. I learned that you can never really know someone, even someone you've loved for years, even someone you live with. People can hide entire secret lives right in front of you. I learned that betrayal doesn't end when the relationship ends. It echoes, forever, through every interaction with your ex, through your kid's childhood, through your ability to trust anyone else. I learned that family isn't always blood. My parents stood by me. My sister survived her own betrayal, and we got closer because of it. Those are my real family. The people who didn't lie, who didn't betray, who showed up when everything fell apart. I learned that some people will surprise you. Emma's parents cut off financial support for her when they found out what she'd done. My dad's brother, the one who told me to forgive Emma, ended up apologizing a year later. Said he didn't understand the depth of the betrayal until his own wife had an emotional affair. Then he got it. I learned that forgiveness is complicated, that you can acknowledge someone's apology without accepting them back into your life, that you can co-parent with someone you hate, that you can be civil without being friends. And I learned that no matter how much someone hurts you, you can't let them take your future. Emma took my past. She tainted every memory we made together. But I'll be damned if I let her take my future too. I'm working on that. Working on opening up again, trusting again, believing that not everyone is like her. It's hard. Brother, it's so hard. Some days I don't think I'll ever get there. But I have to try, for my daughter, for myself. Because the alternative is living the rest of my life as a shell of a person, protecting myself so hard that I never let anyone in. And for anyone who's ever been betrayed, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, because I know what you're going through. The shock, the disbelief, the anger, the grief, all of it. And I want you to know it gets, I won't say better, but it gets bearable. The wound will always be there, but it scars over. You learn to live with it. You learn to function. You rebuild. It won't be the life you planned. It'll be different. Maybe smaller in some ways. Maybe bigger in others, but it'll be yours. And that matters. Don't let the person who betrayed you steal your future. Don't let them take up permanent residence in your head. Don't let their actions define the rest of your life. Easier said than done, I know. I'm still working on it myself. But we keep trying, we keep surviving, we keep building. Because what else can we do? 3 years ago, if you told me I'd be here now, single dad, co-parenting with my ex, sister doing the same thing, 2 kids growing up in this complicated mess, I wouldn't have believed you. I would have said there's no way I could survive that. No way I could handle it. But here I am, still breathing, still fighting, still loving my daughter more than anything in the world, still broken in some ways, but putting myself back together piece by piece. That's life after betrayal. That's the real story. Not the dramatic discovery, or the confrontation, or the fallout, but the years after. The slow, painful, difficult work of rebuilding yourself when everything you knew turned out to be a lie. I don't have a happy ending to give you. I'm not back with Emma. I didn't find true love with someone new. My sister and I aren't best friends with our exes. We didn't all learn a valuable lesson and become one big, happy, blended family. But we survived. We're surviving. And sometimes, brother, that's enough. Sometimes survival is the victory. So if you're going through something like this right now, if someone you trusted just destroyed that trust, if your world just fell apart, I see you. I've been there. I'm still there in a lot of ways. And I'm telling you, you will survive this. It will scar you. It will change you. But you will survive. Keep breathing. Keep moving forward. Keep building your new life on top of the rubble of the old one. It won't be easy. But you're stronger than you think. I know because I'm doing it. 3 years in. Still healing. Still growing. Still becoming whoever I'm going to be on the other side of this. And if I can do it, you can too. That's my story. That's my truth. That's the lesson I never wanted to learn but can't unlearn now. Betrayal changes you, but it doesn't have to destroy you. You get to decide what comes next. Choose survival. Choose healing. Choose yourself. Even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts. Because you deserve better than what they gave you. You deserve a life. A real one. An honest one. So go build it. I'm still building mine. And you know what? Some days. Just some days, I actually think I'm going to be okay. Not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But someday. And that hope. That tiny, fragile hope that someday I'll be okay. That's what keeps me going. Find your hope. Hold on to it. And don't let go. No matter what,